So Final Fantasy, not 14, not 15, Final Fantasy 16, my dudes. It has been rumored for quite a long period of time, and it looks like it can honestly be announced this week, which is completely bonkers. This game has been, it's been out there as long as basically PlayStation 5 has been announced. The rumors say that this game is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. And yes, we will be doing a live stream of the event, which it should be, as it says right here, Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So for all of you who are watching this later on YouTube, please be sure to check that out. The rumors have only been heating up more and more. We have all of these people who are industry insiders. You guys know how that is. Everyone's an industry insider, but everyone's information seems to be lining up to suggest that Final Fantasy XVI is indeed a real game, and it's coming at least timed exclusive for PlayStation 5. And the most recent bit of evidence that we got from this is that Shinji Hashimoto, producer for the Final Fantasy series, has retweeted the PlayStation event. And usually if you guys follow Shinji or you follow any of my videos whenever stuff happens, Shinji has a tendency to always retweet stuff in events whenever it's going to have something there that's related to Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts, right? I doubt anything related to Kingdom Hearts will be there. We got Melody of Memory, right? So that's probably, I don't think they'll be showing off a Melody of Memory port for PS5. That would, it could happen, right? But I doubt that. And with the way the rumors are about Final Fantasy 16 and that this game was supposed to be announced way earlier in the year, it was supposed to be announced, I believe, at the beginning when they first unveiled the PS5 in the first live stream. It's supposed to be announced alongside of that. And then according to the rumors, it just got pushed back and back and back, and everyone's wondering, because all the industry insiders apparently know that this game exists. What's most interesting about it is that Naoki Yoshida is the one that's rumored to be directing it. Although he's denied it several times, his business division is the only one that could possibly be working on it. And they are working on a brand new AAA game, and it's a PlayStation 5 game. Sound familiar? Got any guess on what that could be? So it's very, 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 very likely that we are going to be seeing Final Fantasy 16 sometime soon. Square has also been doing all kinds of hiring in Naoki Yoshida's business division. One of the people that they hired was one of the guys behind Devil May Cry's combat. If you guys have played Final Fantasy XIV, you really don't need one of Devil May Cry's combat planners working for your game. There's no way that his team would need someone like that to work on something for an MMO. So it's definitely not a 14 expansion pack. And judging from the job listing, it doesn't seem like it's going to be either. So everyone's thinking that this showcase here that's happening 1 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday is going to be when it's announced. I surely hope so. And I think that if it's not announced at this show, then it's definitely going to at least be announced at Tokyo Game Show, which is the following week, assuming that all this is real. And it's going to be cool. It's going to be a good time for Final Fantasy fans because we're going to have not only the remake series coming still, we're going to have a new Final Fantasy XIV expansion the next year. We're going to have Final Fantasy 16 during all that time too. So Final Fantasy fans are going to have the meat. They're going to have the meat. It's going to be a really good time for FF fans. What I want to talk about is what do I personally expect from this game. It's hard to have too many firm expectations when you really don't know what the game is fully going to look like yet. I will say this much though. I want a very original looking world. I don't think Final Fantasy ever really lets that down, but I do want something that is a little bit more high fantasy. I tend to like the modern elements of Final Fantasy more because I feel like that sort of mix of modern and fantasy is what makes FF sort of what it is. There's no other game that really blends them together quite like FF does. I don't care if it's turn-based or action. Just give me a good combat system. If I had my way, I would just prefer like an improved version of like what Remake has. If you can give me like what Remake has with the jump button, dude, sold. Awesome. Please. Like that's all I want, right? Remake with the jump button, Final Fantasy XVI, best Final Fantasy of all time. That's it. And in terms of protagonists, don't care if it's a girl or a boy or whatever, but just please, good cast of characters. More important than anything though, please have a well-written story. Cannot stress this enough. Please have a good story, man. I feel like Final Fantasy stories have been lacking for a while. Especially for the Final Fantasies that are mainline. I'm just talking about how I feel about plot ghosts and all that other stuff. But really, I'm more so talking about 13 and 15 and where those games sort of sat with me. Even 12 to some degree, but a lot lesser degree than, say, Final Fantasy 13 and 15, which really just kind of dropped the ball, I believe, in the consensus of most Final Fantasy fans. And I feel like they could honestly do just so much more. But in order to really tell a good story for Final Fantasy, they need to nail the characters. They need to have a story that's actually compelling and rooted in something that real normal human beings can relate to. I feel like 15, they almost nailed that too, with the whole rite of passage to become king, hanging out with your bros in the car. I do not care if it's linear or open world, I'll say that much, but I do hope, regardless of which, that there is some good pacing involved. If they go open world, I hope that the open world structure is full of stuff to do, and it doesn't feel necessarily barren in the way that I felt that Final Fantasy XV's world can sometimes feel. If they go linear, I hope they go with wide linearity so that it constantly feels like the pacing is set right. You know how Final Fantasy X is? And like everything is like so well paced. You go to one place and then you go to the next place, and then you go to the next place, and the pacing just is amazing, right? It's sort of like one point to the next point, to the next point, to the next point. And Final Fantasy X just never drops a beat with that. And not even a single place in Final Fantasy X overstays their welcome, right? So I actually really like that style of linearity. Will they do that? I don't know. That style of linearity is based. Like, if you can do that style of linearity, I'd be cool with every Final Fantasy from here on out actually being linear. Time travel, no time travel. No time travel, no fate. The type of setting that I would like to see in Final Fantasy XVI, I want a setting that is something that we have not seen before. So if they're going to go with the standard medieval style world that I think a lot of people want, that's honestly kind of mid for me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty mid. The reason I say that it's kind of mid, or the reason I feel that way, is because I feel like if you want a medieval setting, you can sort of get that anywhere, you know? Like, there are so many RPGs that have a medieval setting. Final Fantasy is unique because it's this blend of realism and fantasy together, right? So when you think about worlds like FF7 and FF8, they're sort of unique. If they do go like purely in the fantasy direction though, I would like to see them use a non-European source of inspiration, because I feel like the sort of traditional European fantasy is overplayed. So something like Final Fantasy X, where they were heavily inspired by like the cultures of like the Pacific Islands and Asia, we got like a very original world out of Spira. The core essence of Final Fantasy is those super original worlds that we've never seen before. You guys, I'm I'm like over here like getting like hyped up over Final Fantasy XVI, like the possibilities and all the things that they can do to make this game stand out and to redeem some of the past mainline games. I am so hyped. You guys are you're probably gonna see me lose my mind when it gets announced. Like, I'm already ready to go crazy for it. Like, I'm so ready for 16. That excites me.